This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the current state of WWE, everybody. I've got Anthony DeMarco with me on take two that no one knows except us. And we're here to talk about SummerSlam, but not necessarily do a full review. That would take too much time, and you guys have already heard the full review here. But I have not been able to talk to somebody about what's been going on, at least not verbally. Of course, social media, I've been interacting with you guys. But Anthony, welcome back to the show, and how did you like SummerSlam overall?
I was pleasantly surprised. I felt like this is a pay-per-view that overachieved, and the main event is a prime example of that. Going in, I said it on my retro show on Friday that I thought that the card was very underwhelming. Like, I found it absolutely ridiculous that the likes of Gunther and Kevin Owens and AJ Styles weren't even on the pay-per-view. AJ Styles eventually ended up being on it, but not in a match capacity. And I just really thought that this card was thrown together super half-assedly. And look, obviously a lot of things were going on behind the scenes in WWE, but I have to say Triple H, as his first pay-per-view as head of creative, knocked it out of the park. And even for a match like Brock and Roman for like the umpteenth time that I think nobody wanted to see, I think we could all say we walked away from that pay-per-view extremely, extremely happy.
We did. I have not heard anybody really crap on this pay-per-view, and it's deserving of applause. And you know what? While we say Triple H should be given credit, and I think he should, we'll never know ever what truly the effect that Triple H had on this, because we don't know what Vince's plans originally for this were. I mean, what if Vince had actually planned 95% of what we saw, yet we're giving Triple H credit for things that we assume he's done? We can make some assumptions of things that you look at and go, that's got to be Triple H, but we don't know for sure. As we get further out in time and we get away from the Vince McMahon ideology and his whole plan for whatever was going to go on, the further away you get, the more Triple H's influence should show itself, because Triple H can then start to run his own feuds the way he wants to. And, so that's my point. But I do see Triple H's fingerprints, particularly on the main event, and particularly with Bayley's return, bringing back two people that, we never thought we'd see again in WWE. So, that is, I think, something that you look at. And when you look at this pay-per-view, are you kind of thinking the same thing? Are you looking at the main event or Bayley or maybe something else that you're thinking, that's got to be Triple H?
Well, obviously the Bayley thing, and obviously the reports today that, and this isn't pay-per-view related, but like Sasha Banks and Naomi apparently agreeing to come back to the company. There's just a lot of Triple H's fingerprints all over this. And, let's talk about the main event, because for me, it was a match that I had no interest in, but as soon as, Vince stepped down, Triple H took over, my interest peaked. And this isn't to say that I loved the match, because it did ultimately end with the oh-so-predictable ending that we saw 1,000 miles away. But the match was fun. This was a good match, and, especially coming off of their extremely underwhelming match at WrestleMania, where I would say that it was the worst match of the two nights, and I don't say that lightly. But, an otherwise very good WrestleMania culminating with that was a real disappointment. I thought what they did, obviously the front end loader lifting the ring, Paul Heyman getting F5 through the announce table. I just thought everything about this match just screamed like a breath of fresh air. That, yes, we all knew that we were going to see Roman Reigns stand tall, likely in large part because of the Usos, but at least it was something different and something that, I walked away saying that, look, if this match had to happen, this was the best possible way. And look, obviously Triple H, jumped on a moving train here. He got put into power less than a week before SummerSlam, arguably the third biggest pay-per-view of the year behind the Rumble and WrestleMania. But I think that given the hand he was dealt, he made the best of it. And I think that there are a lot of examples of him putting his fingerprints on this product.
Definitely, yeah. And if we're going to focus in on the main event here, and of course there's other things I want to ask you, in the short amount of time we have, but with the main event, I think Triple H absolutely had an impact on this match. And I also think when you look at this, that as many people thought too, I hate to jump on the bandwagon and pile on with an unoriginal thought, but it might be their best matchup that they've ever had, arguably could be, at least in the conversation for the best match that they've had over the last 7 years since WrestleMania 31 when Seth Rollins cashed in. I mean, it's been forever. So now you look at this and some people are saying, oh man, I wish they had another. I'm like, you were just saying, a week ago, I'd never want to see this match again. I mean, that's how sometimes fans are so fickle, but I don't ever want to see this match again. I know that it was their best and they saved maybe their best for last, and that's great, but I still don't want to see these two again. And when I look at this match, I think they busted their ass. Brock killed himself out there. Good for him. The spot with Roman lifting up the ring, stuff that none of us have ever seen ever, which is cool. And having the Usos get involved, we were waiting for that. Paul Heyman getting F5, as you mentioned, and the title belt shots off the skull. You don't see that a whole lot either. When I really enjoyed that. The one thing I'll say, and again, I think the right person won. We never thought Brock was going to win this, and he didn't. But I will say that if this was TV 14, boy, blood could have been used really, really well here. I mean, with all the belt shots off the skull and things that were done, I will say that blood was something that I really missed, and they could have definitely done if this was TV 14. But we got no announcement as I had thought they were going to do. They did nothing. There was nothing spoken about TV 14, so maybe it's still happening behind the scenes. But my question to you is, as we move on in time, do you think we're going to see Brock again in the near future, or do you think it's kind of the SummerSlam to WrestleMania type deal?
I mean, there were rumors that he was going to be done after this. Obviously, he was not the most content when it was announced that Vince was stepping away. But, I mean, I wouldn't expect to see him until the Royal Rumble. I think that he has a good thing in WWE right now. I don't know why Brock would go somewhere else unless he's just completely had it. But, he's still in good shape, still an amazing worker. I know that's contrary to much popular belief, but I still think he's a great in-ring worker. And, I mean, I just really believe here that there's always going to be a place for Brock Lesnar. And maybe if he needs, 5-6 months away to, get his head right because he has to, get accustomed to Vince not being in charge anymore, then so be it. But I think that eventually, somewhere between now and, Royal Rumble slash Mania season, we'll see Brock Lesnar again. And why shouldn't we? He's an attraction. He's the one true, and I know they're all called superstars in WWE, and maybe that'll change now that Vince is out, but he's the last true actual superstar that they have. He's the last true guy that kind of transcends the wrestling business. And from a pure wrestling standpoint, you could say a lot of guys are superstars like AJ Styles and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. But Brock Lesnar is that last guy that is on TV semi-regularly that everyone knows, even outside of wrestling. And I think that is very valuable to the WWE, so they will surely make it worth his while to still stay on in a semi-regular capacity. And even for himself, obviously he doesn't need WWE, but we know that. But I can't help but feel that he somehow feels flattered that he must know that he's that guy for the company right now. So I do think that we will see him sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it feels like closing of a chapter. It should be the closing of a chapter, and it feels like if Vince was here, it feels like it would be, yeah, we'll see Brock in January, and then he'll go into whatever program. And that still may be the case. But I do wonder, who the hell would be next for Brock Lesnar? Omos? Who's next? When you look it up and down the card, you look at both rosters. If both rosters are open, you look at it and you're like, well, who could it possibly be? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. And if you don't have an answer, then you don't have an answer, because I honestly don't know. Who would they put Brock Lesnar against at WrestleMania? Do you have any clues?
It's tough, right? Because, you would assume that they would have to try and, or I guess not have to, but I would assume that they're going to try and separate those world titles somehow. I just even find it looks dumb that he comes to the ring with both belts. I don't know about you, but do you just find the visual stupid as well?
I'm over the visual because they're overexposing it. But yeah, I miss when it was in 2002 when Jericho unified them, and then it became the actual single belt. They actually changed the physical belt. So yeah, I'm done with the two belt thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so like, and if they were to, introduce a permanent WWE champion, let's just say, then maybe you could pit him against whoever that guy is. Like, I guess the easy low-hanging fruit would be Drew McIntyre because he is the next in line to challenge for the Undisputed Championship. Maybe you go a rematch between those two. Like, people forget about because it was during the build-up or right before ultimately COVID hit. But, that was a pretty good program between Drew and Brock Lesnar. And because of how it culminated in the what is it? What do they call it now? The Capitol Wrestling Center?
Yes.
Yep. Because it culminated there just as COVID hit in front of nobody, people don't really talk about Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre. And, every Brock Lesnar feud he's had over the last number of years since he came back, whether that had been Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins or Braun Strowman or even Samoa Joe, you never really saw Brock go up against a guy in a one-and-done capacity. It was always like a series of matches. Even The Undertaker, they fought again at SummerSlam 2015, and it ended at like Hell in a Cell 2015. But Drew McIntyre was the only guy that Brock ever like lost clean to, and then you never heard from him again. And I feel like, given all the stuff that happened between then and now, and by WrestleMania season, it will have been 3 years since that went down, which is absolutely crazy to me. I think that if you revisit Drew versus Brock Lesnar, and they kind of hinted at it a bit, was it on SmackDown where Drew hit Austin Theory with the Claymore? So I would say Drew versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship in a rematch would be something I would explore.
That's definitely on the table, given that they had the weirdest match. I mean, as everybody did, when it was super quiet and it was just the I remember very vividly the last man standing match with Edge and Orton that just really, I think, it felt like an hour and a half long. And it was just, nobody benefited from nobody being in that arena at that time, and a very strange time, but they could revisit it. The only thing is, when you look at Brock Lesnar and his return, since that time, since the COVID era and the Thunderdome era, and Brock Lesnar has returned, and like Brock Lesnar has won like one match since he's been back. Like, he has done the job for everybody all the time. The only match I can think of off the top of my head that he's won in the last like year and a half is the Fatal 5-Way, when he was inserted just to take the championship off Big E so he could give it to Roman at WrestleMania. That's it. That's all I can think of. I might be wrong, but like Brock Lesnar has not come back to win. He's come back to put people over, which is really just crazy. I'm sure Brock doesn't give a damn because he's getting paid millions to just, lose a fake fight or whatever. But whatever. It's just bizarre when you look at it and you think of this is your biggest star, your biggest guy, and he's just doing job after job after job. It's not hurting him. It's not staining his legacy or anything, but I don't think it's something that people are really talking about. Like, Brock just continues to lose and lose and lose and lose. And, I understand why, but do you ever think about that? Like, Brock's losing a lot.
100%. And like, aside from the Fatal 5-Way match, the only match he's won was the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So aside from like these multi-man gimmick matches, he hasn't won. But to be fair, he's only fought 2 guys since he returned, either Roman Reigns or the one-off with Bobby Lashley. And even against Bobby Lashley, Roman Reigns has gotten involved in that as well. So unless it was like a Fatal 5-Way or an Elimination Chamber multi-man match, it's always had to involve Roman Reigns in some capacity. And, that goes back to the age-old saying that you've been saying for 4 years now. Everything leads to Roman Reigns. All roads lead to Roman Reigns. And the same could be true for Brock since his return last summer in 2021. So I think that if you bring back Brock this time around, you would have to have and the Royal Rumble, evidently. So, I mean, unless it is a big multi-man match, Brock isn't winning it, apparently, over the last 12 months.
That's true. Yeah, I should probably clarify. It's singles matches he continues to lose. If he's in a multi-person match, look out. I mean, yeah, that's true. That is very true. The one thing I'll say is that Brock Lesnar, if he's going to have another match at WrestleMania or beyond that, get him out of the title picture, because I think that's what a lot of that is what is creating us and other fans who have been watching wrestling for a while to kind of see the predetermined outcome. Like, well, Brock's not going to win. He's not at that stage of his career. It should be about building the new stars. So, like, you look at this and go, all right, well, if Brock Lesnar's not in a title picture, then things become, to me, much more interesting because it's a blood feud. It's something personal. You don't have to take and overshadow the championship over whatever's going on with Brock. So to me, it'd be much more unpredictable and more fun if Brock Lesnar gets into a program of somebody that has nothing to do with the championship.
And it's fair, right? Because it's rare that Brock Lesnar will leave WrestleMania as a world champion. It happened twice, at WrestleMania 33 against Goldberg and WrestleMania 34 against Roman Reigns. But all the other times that he's walked in as champion since his return in 2012, he always drops the belt, like in WrestleMania 31, WrestleMania 36 against Drew, this past year's WrestleMania 35 against Seth, because we know that typically between WrestleMania and SummerSlam is a big period of time off for Brock Lesnar. So I would agree, and I guess at that point you would have to explore, let's say, an up-and-coming guy. Like, would a Gunther be on that level by that point? I think that would be a really cool avenue to explore. Would you make him go up against, like, another part-timer, kind of? Maybe, like, Edge? Have we ever seen Edge versus Brock Lesnar? But I think Edge is another cool segue here, because obviously he has the big return, but, like, I don't know about you, and I'm an Edge fan, but, like, I just didn't care about this return. Where do you guys stand with it?
You know, because you and I text a little bit about it, and I said I don't know what to make of it, and I still don't, but I'm also, so here's the thing. Monday Night Raw is happening right now. Maybe it'll make me care a little bit more about what happens on Raw, and Edge's promos always bring you back in. No matter what's going on, he's such a good talker that the emotion that he's able to connect with the fans on and all of that. He's so good that he might change my opinion, but as it stands right now, I'm leaning on the side of kind of meh. Like, okay, number one, it was the worst kept secret that Edge was coming back at SummerSlam. Number two, what is he? Like, why what is this entrance? Is he kind of a Brood member, but he also kind of has still dark ties to the Judgment Day? Like, what is that? We don't know what version of Edge this is. You know, and I also don't like Edge with really short hair. Like, I love Edge with long hair. That doesn't help him, but that's personal preference. But I don't know what Edge is, and I just am not excited about his return like a lot of people were, because it was very predictable, which is fine, but I also wish if he returned, he would have just stayed with the Judgment Day. You think he's out there to help the Mysterios, and he's the one that, you know, gives them both, you know, two concertos, and then stands tall with the Judgment Day and explains on Raw that, you know, the Judgment Day, they saw through me, and they exposed to my weakness, and thank you. Like, you could make this very easily another turn for Edge. I think they could have done that. I don't know why they brought him back as a babyface. You and I and everybody else, I think, that listens to this is just wondering why the hell they did the premature breakup anyway. It was just bizarre. But, yeah, I'm looking at this Edge thing. I'm going, nah, okay. Like, I respect Edge, but I don't know what this version of Edge is, and I would have preferred him to stay heel. He did not get a long enough heel run.
Well, do we even know, like, I couldn't hear it over the crowd, but, like, what theme music did he use when he came back? It
was kind of like a hybrid of The Brood and something I've never heard. It was like a little bit of Brood in there.
Yeah, and, like, I get it that they've been playing off The Brood for the last, like, 12 months when he came out against Seth Rollins at last year's SummerSlam. So I get that. Like, I can appreciate that. And, like, look, Edge is very easily capable of making me care again. But even, like, his gear, like, okay, so a red jacket, you're wearing the sunglasses, like, I don't know, and maybe it's just because they left a sour taste in my mouth because of the premature turn, and, like, I don't care about the Judgment Day at all anymore. And I will say that when Rhea Ripley is there, it makes me care more, so kudos to Rhea Ripley, but when it was just, you know, Damian Priest and Finn Balor for a bit, like, I could not care less. So, like, maybe that's just me going in with, like, a predetermined opinion on the matter. But it's like everything about this was just so poorly executed. And look, that was when Vince McMahon was in charge. So maybe Triple H had something up his sleeve to, you know, right the ship here. But unless righting the ship is, you know, means turning Edge heel, I don't think anything's going to save this. And based on what happened at SummerSlam, it doesn't seem like he is going to be turning heel. So, or not even turning heel, staying heel, but I guess he turned babyface. It's all very confusing, and I know I've said this for the last 12 months or so, but anytime, or 24 months at this point, anytime you have Dominic and Rey Mysterio involved in something, like, it automatically torpedoes my interest. So maybe they're just kind of getting the shrapnel of this, Edge that is. But just everything about this storyline right now just doesn't have me interested whatsoever.
Yeah, and the fact that they still are, they've had perfect opportunity after perfect opportunity to turn Dominic heel, and they haven't done it, I said, okay, they at least still have SummerSlam. And nope, it come and goes, and Dominic is still being, the pasty white, boring houseplant that just has no personality at all. The guy is just so boring. And he's doesn't look the part. I mean, I've said it many times. In the ring, he's fine, but that's about all he's got. And a good last name. That's about it. I'm sorry, that's true. But right now with Edge, I feel underwhelmed with him. I'm not excited about him right now. And again, like he's a great talker. He could talk me back into caring, but there's still so much to be explored with him as a heel, and I just don't know where the hell they're going to go with him. And, with the Mysterios, I honestly, like you said, it's true. Any program that they're in, it instantly makes me have to consciously make an effort to care about what's going on. I have to force myself, resist the instinct I have to just completely tune them out. Both of them. And just because to me, they're almost insufferable as a tag team just because that's how I feel. But I don't know. With Edge, I'm a little bit disappointed about the return. I feel very flat about it. And honestly, what are they going to do with Edge? Okay, now he stays babyface, which you and I don't agree with, but he stays babyface. And what does he do? Does he team with the Mysterios to take on Rhea and those, Rhea and the Judgment Day? But then there's a female there. How does that work? Or is it just one-on-one? Is it two-on-one? It feels like there's not a big enough star here for Edge to face. It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, I just really think here that they've run themselves into a corner with Edge, and the only way to have liberated more opponents for him was as a heel. But now that he's back as a babyface, who's he going to feud with? Okay, you're going to run through Damian Priest and Finn Balor, like you said. Okay, I guess he's going to tag with Rey Mysterio for a bit. But those two guys aren't, on a main event level. So after that, who's he going to feud with? Kevin Owens? At this point, I don't see an interesting feud for Edge, because he did kind of go through a lot of the heels on the roster before he eventually did turn heel right before this year's WrestleMania. And, I don't know. It was a really botched opportunity, especially because how good the Judgment Day was. And it still doesn't make sense to me that they're just using Edge's gimmick. That was his gimmick, and then he formed the Judgment Day. It wasn't they formed, the Judgment Day all at once and grew with this gimmick. They just stole Edge's gimmick, so it feels very, contrived and, fake in a lot of ways. I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm being so hard on Damian Priest and Finn Balor. The whole thing just doesn't make sense to me.
It feels like you're right. They're wearing the colors of the Judgment Day with her purple and black, but there's nothing beneath the surface. It's hollow. It's just, we wear the colors, but we don't really know what our mission statement is. We don't really get a whole lot of promo time. Our spokesman that really talked this whole thing into existence and was the life of this group is now gone. It's very, very weird, and they need to do a lot of damage control. I mean, they still, I guess, could make Edge the leader to have some kind of crazy turn again, which I would honestly go for. Just freaking do it. But all right, two more things I want to talk about really quickly, and then we'll wrap it up. Back onto the women's division here with Becky and with Bianca Belair. Quickly, I thought their match was good. I didn't think it lived up to the hype, maybe unfairly, of a bar that I set for it, but I thought it was good. Started out really slow, but they picked it up. And you get a Bianca Belair victory, and then Bayley returns with Io Sky. And who's the other one? I'm trying to think of the other girl's name. Io Sky, and somebody out there is yelling at me right now.
Yeah, it's
I don't know,
Dakota something.
Yeah, Dakota Kai. There you go.
Dakota. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Dakota Kai and Io Sky. So they both return with Bayley, and she backs down. I think she looked really good. The crowd gave her a nice warm reception, but for her to be in a stable, I really enjoyed that. They made it very clear from the beginning, we're heels. And that's it, and that's fine. I think, I'm surprised they didn't at least give Bayley a little bit of a babyface run to see what happens. But Bianca goes face to face. Becky turns babyface in the process by standing side by side with Becky. So now we have a Becky Lynch babyface turn and a Bayley return. I really like this. Did you?
Yeah, I did too, but it was unfortunately announced that I think Becky separated her shoulder and she's going to be out for an extended period of time. But, I think that Becky as a heel, although I had been advocating for it before she walked away to be a mom, I thought that it was kind of being forced because the crowd just wants to cheer for her. It almost felt like when Austin was a heel in a lot of ways. And that's not me comparing Becky to Stone Cold Steve Austin, but I just felt like there was a lot of resistance. And look, I love Bayley. I think Bayley is right now my favorite female competitor. And, I just think that Bayley has it. And it seemed like that was the last big opponent that Bianca Belair had yet to lock horns with. Maybe Charlotte Flair on a bigger scale, but, she had beat Sasha Banks, she had beat Becky Lynch, and then it just felt fitting here that Bayley was the next one. And she comes back with lackeys, and that always helps to solidify yourself as a heel. I wasn't completely sold on pushing forward with Bianca Belair as a babyface, but I don't think it's a bad call to continue with it. Maybe there's some more juice left to be squeezed. And certainly if you're bringing Bayley back to be that top level heel, it certainly presents another option. So all in all, I think this is going to present a new opportunity and a new avenue for them to go down with the women's division, especially on Monday Night Raw, because I feel like for the better part of 6 months, it's just kind of been Becky and Bianca.
Yeah, this breathes new life into the women's division. I think it needed it pretty badly, especially on Raw. And I also think, well, first of all, I didn't know about that news. Maybe it was announced on Raw or social media about Becky's injury. But I still think, and maybe I was talking with you or someone else, I honestly don't know over the last week, I've done so many shows, that if Becky Lynch turns babyface and Ronda turns heel at SummerSlam, I think that is a telltale sign that those two are on a collision course for WrestleMania, that will finally get Ronda Becky one-on-one, because it should be heel Ronda versus babyface Becky. We're finally going to get it, I think, after the WrestleMania 35, that they inserted Charlotte. I'm still bitter about 3 years later. It's so ridiculous that they inserted Charlotte into that. But now I think that both of them are in their correct roles. I think both of them are in the roles that they should be in, that you could get this all the way to WrestleMania, maybe with a bit of a tease at Survivor Series or in December or January, and then you're full blast into to WrestleMania. But I guess let's move into quickly the Ronda Rousey and the Liv Morgan matchup for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I thought the match just quickly was just underwhelming. I wasn't a big fan of the matchup. It wasn't clunky or embarrassing. It was just average to I think a little bit below average. And maybe because I haven't had a lot of time in the ring, Liv Morgan and Ronda haven't had that chemistry together, or whatever the case may be. But it was okay match, but it ended up with a very interesting ending, one I've never seen that way done before, creative way anyway, with the pin being applied to Ronda with her shoulders on the mat, but at the same time we have Liv tapping. Liv tapped before the 3 count, so Liv should have lost, and then Ronda, Ollie effing Luya, turns heel and attacks Liv Morgan, attacks the referee. Thank God this is done, and I'm so happy that she's finally a heel. I think Ronda as a heel is going to be immensely entertaining. She can crap on the fans, just say literally whatever she's been thinking, bottled up for 3 years, and just let us have it, and I've been really waiting for that. And I think the fans are going to embrace it, and now you have Ronda in the proper role. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I just felt their chemistry from an in-ring perspective was very weird. I did like the fact that, Liv was visibly kind of afraid of Ronda, because it does present kind of like a realistic aspect of it. But look, all in all, I thought we all knew that Liv was going to retain in some hook or crook way, maybe not intentionally, but like some clunky finish to at least protect Ronda Rousey. And her being a heel, come on, we've been looking for this since the build up to WrestleMania 35. This is something that should have happened upon her return to the company at the Royal Rumble this past year. She's built to be a heel. She could have a very Brock Lesnar-esque type of vibe about her, especially with the UFC background. And look, I think a lot of people were fed up with her as a babyface, but I think that now that she's turning heel, people will have a lot more time for Ronda Rousey. So I think this is going to go really well for WWE.
Definitely. I mean, I am now a Ronda Rousey fan from the character perspective. Let's see what she presents on Friday. And I think that the muzzle will be off. She doesn't have to necessarily think about what she's going to say because she can just say it. Because I naturally think that she is a heel as an actual person. I think that she has a lot of arrogance and she doesn't have to hide that. She doesn't have to worry about smiling, all that crap. She can just let us have it. And I want to hear what she has to say about it. And yeah, it's long overdue. And the chemistry between them, yeah, it wasn't great, but now she has opened up a completely new set of women to work with. Whether or not they have the draft, I don't know. The draft is effectively dead, and it's been dead, as you and I have said many times for months and months. It's been dead, quietly died. And so to me, this is a lot of fun. Like, I'm now interested. Instead of seeing Ronda coming down smiling, like just ear to ear like a child every week, I now get to see her come out and maybe scowl at us and crap on us and tell us that she didn't have to come here. She did it because you wanted me here, right? Like there's so much that she could say. It's just endless. And so that's going to be a lot of fun for me. And Liv Morgan, the only thing I'll say about it, she did play the kind of tentatively, I'm a bit skeptical of my ability here, which is fine, and it is realistic. But also when you look at Liv Morgan, the credibility of Liv Morgan isn't really there as a champion. Like, okay, she has the tenure. She's been there for, 7 years, and she finally wins, and that's fine. So she has a little respect, but the credibility in which she won was when Ronda was at her weakest, winning the Money in the Bank, and then she retains by just lady luck. I mean, so she hasn't yet successfully defended or won the SmackDown Women's Championship any Women's Championship in a credible way. Now, she's only been champion a month. There's time to repair that, but as it stands right now, she's just kind of she's a champion because of just simply the circumstances, not because of her credibility in ring.
Yeah, I think she got, the push that she did just because, or you can't even really call it a push, just I guess the victory that she got because there was a lot of that sentimental backing behind her. Like, people just started organically liking Liv Morgan, which is fine, but I just think she's kind of an example of someone who would greatly benefit from like a mid-card championship for the women's division. And look, I am not advocating for that because they just don't have enough women simply. So the only way that they could go about that is like if they abolished one of the world titles and like gave them like a mid-card championship. But I just think that she is one of the examples of like maybe someone who would have benefited from a more, let's say, like linear push as opposed to like up and down, and then all of a sudden she's at the top of the food chain, defeating Ronda Rousey, who arguably has the most credibility because of her martial arts background. So I do agree with you, and it is a work in progress, especially when you compare directly up against Bianca Belair. Like, it really is apples to oranges at this point. But I guess I would give it a bit more time because I do like Liv Morgan. I do think the crowd likes Liv Morgan. But at this point, it has kind of been an uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean, she's just a sympathetic figure where she's been here a long time and everyone's like looking around like, oh man, she hasn't got an opportunity. That'd be pretty cool if she did. And instead of, actually organically building her as somebody that continues to win and she's on a hot streak and look out, Liv is on fire, it's kind of like, well, the lovable loser should get an opportunity. And I think you can only go so far on that before she finally, fans start to go, yeah, she doesn't have a whole lot of credibility. So she's not in danger right now, and she is likable, but I'd like her to get some credible victories, some credible defenses over the next couple of months. But last question, very quickly, I don't want to dive into it, just Logan Paul. What'd you think?
I mean, you may hate him as a person, but the guy's amazing in the ring. He's a natural. I saw this thrown a few times over the last couple of days. He's already 10 times better than a guy like Dominic Mysterio. He looks the part. He can play the part. He may be a douche in real life, but hey, the guy's got it, and I have nothing bad to say about him.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but she also and I think he truly is a d-bag in real life. I really do. I truly believe that's kind of who he is, and he's shown that over the last several years when he's not supposed to be, or when he is supposed to be this lovable guy, he's not. But when you think about it, we don't know. There are probably a lot of D-bags that come across likable on TV that when the cameras are off, they are just the worst person in the world. You don't know, so as long as on TV he can perform, and he takes it seriously and respects the business. To me, those are the things I was looking for, that he wasn't just kind of like haphazardly half-assing it, and he wasn't. Like, he clearly put in the work. He did an amazing job, overperformed. I give the guy credit. He's a D-bag in real life, but does that really matter when it comes to being on screen and making sure that you're putting on a respectable performance, and that you're taking this seriously, and that you have compelling storylines? No, I mean, he needs some work in promos. He needs a little work in selling, but he's like, he looks like somebody that's been there 5 years. Like, he doesn't look like somebody that was his first one-on-one match in WWE. It's a credit to him. So, all right, well, I'll wrap it up here. But of course, I know you just dropped your WWE Retro SummerSlam 2000, right, this past week?
Yeah, it was an interesting pay-per-view to cover. I watched it a lot in my life just because I had the DVD back in the day. And now, obviously, I've gone back and watched it several times on the network. But I think it was just an example of a card that, maybe like this one, that on the surface, it didn't look too good in terms of like the name value, no Stone Cold Steve Austin and whatnot, but really kind of over-delivered, especially with a really good triple threat match between The Rock, Triple H, and Kurt Angle.
Very good. Yeah, I got to listen. I got through half of it, so I got to finish the other half. But guys, go check it out. Retro every single Friday drops on our feed, so check it out. And as we get closer now, we are in Clash at the Castle season. That takes place in 5 weeks in Cardiff, Wales, and on September 3rd. That feels like an eternity away, but it will blink and it'll be here. Which also means, guys, football, for those of you in the United States that care, football is literally around the corner too. So wow, summer's over in 4 weeks here. So that's it for us tonight, guys. Thanks so much, and thanks, buddy. We will be talking next week.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.